Hello everyone, welcome to the 15th tutorial in the series of Complete Guide to React.js. In this tutorial, we will see what is the answer for the question that has been raised in the last tutorial. In the last tutorial, I was explaining you, like say for example, there is a case where I'm going to call this increment method twice or thrice. Do the set state value would be called twice, thrice, and what would be the value of the count, right? So rather than explaining it theoretically, we will do it in practical way. So I'm going to create a new method name increment2. So in this method, I would create this increment. I'm going to call the increment method twice. So after calling the increment method twice, I'm going to make this available once I click the button click me. So what is would be the ideal scenario is like what our expectation would be is I'm clicking the button on click, that is click me once, and once it is clicked it is going over here to increment 2, and over here there are two increment calls and which would make the value count. At first two it was 0 and it would increment by 1. For the second call it would be 2. That would be our thought, right? Let's see what happens over here. So I'm refreshing the browser and I'm going to click on click me function. See, I clicked this button once and the counter value is incremented by 1 rather than 2. And also you can take a look at the console. In console.log, the 1 is printed twice. So you can't able to say that this method is being called only once. It is called twice. But why the value of the counter is incremented by only 1 rather than 2? So the answer is this is what setState behaves like. Say for example, in React, if a button is clicked, an action is getting happened, right? And it is calling setState twice. So by calling this method, you'll also call setState twice, right? React, what it does is, it will say, hey, you click the button once, but twice this action has been triggered. And why you are triggering twice? I'm going to set it once. So it would compensate all the triggers that done in the set state for once. It would compensate into a single value. So the multiple set state, which is called at a point of a time, would be compensated collaborated into one, and this would call the setState method only once. So this is how React.js behaves. Say for example, no, I don't want to do that. I want to call the set state whenever I am calling the set state, it has to add that particular value count to 1. So what I'll be doing is at that time, instead of passing a value and assigning it to it, I should pass a function as a parameter. Let's see how to do it, because if I explain it theoretically, that would be very difficult for you to understand. So over here, I'm going to pass a function, and this is a ES6 JavaScript. So over here, I'm passing a function. And in this function, what I'm going to pass is PrevState, which is nothing but previous state. You can also mention any name you want. And since it is already having a previous state, according to the ES6, you don't want the parenthesis bracket, sorry. So I'm going to remove the bracket. And after this, what it is going to do is I'm going to mention count is nothing but that value should take it as previous state plus 1. Previous state dot count plus 1. So I'm getting the previous state plus I'm getting the count of it, and I'm just incrementing it by 1. So by this way, since it has to get the previous state, the set state would be executed twice. So I have closed this. I have to put in another bracket to close previous state, and I'm just going to cancel this, and I'm also going to put an end over here and going to save it. So I'm also called, okay, it's calling two functional function back, and it's a problem. And I'm going to close it. I'm going to save it, and right now I'm going to execute, and let's see what happens. See, it is incremented twice right now. So at first time when the call comes over here, it is passing the previous state. The previous state is 0, and the previous state count value is 0 plus 1. It is adding it. And for the second call, it is also coming over here, and it will examine what is the previous state. Previous state is 1. So 1 plus 1, it would get added. But in previous code, the code snippet that we have written before, over here you're setting the values. At that time, it would say, the set state would say, see, I'm a React, and you're asking me to call the set state. And in the set state, you're passing the variable that I'll compensate. Like that, React would do it. But right now, since your variable is dependent on the previous state, React would get the previous state count value and would increment by 1. So this is the main difference, and most of them would get confused over here, and I want to put a set a separate video for this, and this would help you in your project, and hence the reason I have included this particular topic alone in a separate tutorial. So that's it for now. So in the next tutorial we'll get into some other concepts.